When Dasha Nekrasova sat down for a podcast interview, she had no idea her entire Hollywood career was about to implode. What started as just another episode of her show Red Scare turned into a scandal so explosive that it cost her everything in a matter of hours. Her agency dropped her, her upcoming movie role vanished, and suddenly the actress who charmed audiences as Comfrey on HBO's hit series found herself completely blacklisted. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The interview that destroyed her career happened over a month ago, and Hollywood only just found out about it. The bomb that detonated Dasha Nekrasova's Hollywood dreams was a 2.5-hour conversation with Nick Fuentes, a figure so controversial that even mentioning his name sends shockwaves through the industry. Fuentes has been described as a white nationalist and leader of the so-called Groyper movement, a racist and anti-Semitic belief system. The interview, titled Fentanyl OD, went live on YouTube back in October, racking up over 220,000 views with barely a whisper in mainstream entertainment circles. But when Hollywood insiders finally discovered what was said during those 150 minutes, the fallout was immediate and brutal. Gersh talent agency fired Nekrasova, and her contract for the upcoming thriller Iconoclast was pulled before she could even sign it. The speed of the cancellation was unprecedented, like watching dominoes fall in real time.
What makes this scandal particularly fascinating is the mystery of why it took so long to surface. The podcast dropped on October 10, sitting on YouTube for weeks, while Nekrasova continued her Hollywood business as usual. She was moving forward with projects, booking roles, and apparently no one at her agency had any clue about the ticking time bomb on her podcast feed. The interview only began making its way around Hollywood in the last couple of days, triggering immediate reactions to disavow the content. Imagine the panic in those agency offices when someone finally hit play and realized what their client had been discussing with one of the most polarizing figures in American politics. The content was so problematic that there was no discussion, no second chances, just instant career destruction. The topics covered in that fateful interview read like a checklist of everything Hollywood won't touch. Nekrasova and her co-host Anna Kachian discussed Fuentes' rise in popularity, the Charlie Kirk situation, immigration, Kanye West, vaccines, and the Groyper Army. But that's just scratching the surface of what was actually said. The real damage came from specific segments that crossed every possible line. The conversation touched on controversial topics, perpetuating offensive stereotypes about multiple groups, and including eyebrow-raising comments about historical events and immigrants. Multiple sources confirm the discussion repeatedly circled back to deeply problematic territory, the kind of content that makes publicists break out in cold sweats.
Here's where it gets even more complicated. Dasha Nekrasova isn't some random podcaster who stumbled into acting. She's a legitimate talent who built a respectable Hollywood resume. On Succession, she played Comfrey Pellets, a member of Kendall Roy's PR team who briefly dated cousin Greg, appearing in 9 episodes. She had roles in shows like Mr. Robot and Dickinson, and she's not just an actress, but also a writer and director. Nekrasova made her directorial debut in 2021 with the horror thriller The Scary of 61st. This wasn't some fringe personality crashing Hollywood parties. This was someone with genuine credentials and industry connections, which makes her decision to platform Fuentes even more baffling to observers. The Red Scare podcast itself has always operated in controversial territory, but Nekrasova managed to keep her dual life balanced until now. She launched Red Scare with Anna Kachian in 2018, building a substantial following by pushing boundaries and taking provocative stances. The show has occasionally raised eyebrows with dirtbag left adjacent political stances,
but never in a way that crossed the line for mainstream representation. Until this interview. The Fuentes conversation wasn't just edgy or provocative, it was something else entirely. And that's why the industry response was so swift and unforgiving. Understanding who Nick Fuentes is helps explain why Hollywood reacted with such extreme measures. This isn't someone with slightly different political views or controversial opinions on tax policy. The New York Times described the 27-year-old as a white nationalist, noting that Tucker Carlson's recent interview with Fuentes triggered significant controversy on the American right. During the Carlson interview, Fuentes called for an exclusive, pro-white Christian movement and discussed organized groups undermining American cohesion. Even conservative figures have distanced themselves from him, which tells you everything about where he sits on the political spectrum. For a Hollywood actress to give him a platform for over 2 hours wasn't just controversial, it was professional self-destruction.
The immediate aftermath reveals just how completely Nekrasova's career imploded. She was let go by Gersh and lost her role in Gabriel Basso's upcoming film Iconoclast before signing contracts. Gabriel Basso, known for The Night Agent, was making his directorial debut with this thriller, and producers moved faster than lightning to remove Nekrasova from the project. There were no meetings, no attempts at damage control, just immediate severance. The message from Hollywood was crystal clear. Association with Fuentes is an instant career killer. No exceptions, no explanations necessary. What makes this story even more intriguing is Nekrasova's history of controversial statements that somehow didn't derail her career until now. In 2023, while talking to the New York Times, Nekrasova said, "Francis is not the real pope, we all know it," which ended up being controversial. She's made other provocative statements over the years, walking the line between edgy commentary and problematic positions. But this time, she didn't just walk the line, she sprinted across it while carrying dynamite. The Fuentes interview was the moment where Hollywood decided the risk was no longer worth the reward, where her talent couldn't justify the liability she'd become. The entertainment industry's response highlights an interesting double standard that's worth examining. Nekrasova has been making controversial content for years on her podcast, saying things that would make studio executives uncomfortable. Yet she continued getting roles, continued working, continued building her Hollywood career. Nekrasova has long blended her espoused political views with her mainstream work, having gained early attention for touting pro-Bernie Sanders comments on Alex Jones's InfoWars. She's been provocative from the start, so why did this particular interview become the breaking point? The answer seems to be that there's controversial, and then there's platforming someone like Fuentes for 2.5 hours.
The technical aspects of the interview add another layer of strangeness to the whole situation. Nekrasova noted in text under the video that there were technical problems, making the interview essentially audio only, jumping repeatedly between images of the participants. So this career-ending conversation wasn't even a polished professional production. It was a glitchy, audio-heavy podcast that still managed to accumulate enough views to eventually catch the attention of Hollywood gatekeepers. The amateur quality almost makes it worse, suggesting this wasn't some calculated media strategy, but rather a casual decision that spiraled into catastrophe. The timing raises fascinating questions about Hollywood's awareness and reaction cycles. For weeks, this interview existed in plain sight on YouTube, available for anyone to find. Nekrasova's name is in the title, it's on her podcast channel, and yet her agency apparently had no idea. Did they not monitor their clients' other ventures? Did they know and hope it would stay buried? While the podcast was published a month ago, it only began circulating in Hollywood recently.
This suggests that either the entertainment industry isn't as plugged into internet culture as it thinks, or there is a deliberate looking the other way until something becomes too public to ignore. The Icon situation adds an extra layer of professional tragedy to the story. The 34-year-old actress was facing backlash after conducting the podcast interview, resulting in her being dropped from the upcoming thriller, which will mark Gabriel Basso's directorial debut. She was about to sign contracts, presumably excited about the project, probably already preparing for the role. Then everything evaporated in hours. That's the brutal reality of Hollywood consequences. They don't gradually build, they strike like lightning. And suddenly, you're out in the cold, wondering what happened.
Looking at the broader implications, this scandal reveals Hollywood's current boundaries in stark terms. You can be edgy, you can be provocative, you can even be controversial, but there are certain lines that result in instant exile. Platforming figures like Fuentes is one of those lines. The industry has decided that some associations are simply too toxic, regardless of your talent, your track record, or your explanations. Nekrasova discovered this the hard way, and her career serves as a warning to others about where Hollywood draws its non-negotiable boundaries. What happens next for Dasha Nekrasova remains the biggest question. Can she rebuild her Hollywood career, or is this the end? Will she lean fully into her podcast persona now that mainstream opportunities have evaporated? The interview that destroyed her career still sits on YouTube, a permanent record of the moment everything changed. Whether this becomes a cautionary tale or the start of a different kind of career depends entirely on what Nekrasova does next. But one thing's certain. Hollywood has made its judgment, and the consequences are playing out in real time.